各位来宾，我们的论坛差不多时间要开始了，那麻烦尚未就座的来宾请先就座。Our forum is going to start in a minute, so please take your seat and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. 好，各位来宾午安。国际艺术银行国际趋势论坛下午场即将开场。那我们这一场演讲，首先是先邀请到来自澳洲艺术银行的执行长 Tony Stephens 先生。那他以艺术银行和分享经济为主题进行分享。那我们也邀请到国立台湾艺术大学艺术管理与文化政策研究所的赖英英教授来做主持。那我们首先有请赖英英教授帮我们做开场，谢谢。请掌声欢迎赖英英教授。
喂，听得到吗？可以哈，大家好，大家午安。在礼拜六的下午能够来国美馆，然后参加这个艺术银行的国际论坛，我觉得这是一个明智的决定，因为呢，其实我们这一次国美馆主办这个国际的论坛，邀请到来自于美国、英国、还有澳洲、还有加拿大这些他们执行艺术银行已经有很丰富经验的这些国家来跟我们分享经验。那同时也来可以对于我们台湾的艺术银行的执行可以有一个参照，所以我想这是一个非常难得的机会。但是呢，我们其实也会发现说，台湾能够有机会参考国外的案例，能够在巨人的肩膀上，好，在近3年里面执行这个艺术银行的专案。事实上，我们也看到，其实执行3年以来已经有很好的成果。那所以呢，今天其实下午我们所要特别邀请到的是来自于澳洲的艺术银行的负责人Tony Stephens 先生。那我们也可以说，艺术银行其实是一个台湾有文化政策以来一个很重要的政策。我们有1%的公共艺术的政策，我们有艺术银行的政策，我们有国际艺术村的这样子的政策。事实上，台湾不管在艺术的普及化，还有艺术的流通，还有扶持年轻的艺术家，在整个艺术生态的促进上面，我们做了很多的事情。但是我们下一步要走到哪里去，也是我们要思考的。所以今天呢，我们非常高兴能够邀请到 Mr. Tony Stephens 来跟我们分享一下他们澳洲的艺术银行的发展。好，那Stephens 先生的经验呢，其实他做过所有我们在艺术领域里面所有梦幻的各种工作的经验。比如说，他做过 curator， 他自己也是一个 art critic， 他也是做一个 art administrator。好，各式各样的跟艺术生态这个领域里面有关的工作，他都非常有经验。但是他今天担任一个艺术银行的负责人，他要跟我们分享的是共享的经济。所以我们也可以很难得有这个机会能够了解一下，在澳洲他们是我们做艺术银行的一个很好的楷模，但是接下来下一步他们怎么走？所以我觉得我们今天请大家一起用手来欢迎 Mr. Tony Stephens。
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to the museum for inviting me. My second trip to Taiwan, my second trip to Taichung. I feel very honored to be here amongst my esteemed colleagues and obviously Artbank Taiwan. I want to talk today about a few things. Ranging from Artbank and the model we use in Australia, because you might have gathered already, not all art banks are equal. Each one has a slightly different remit and a slightly different way of going about fulfilling that. I provide this as context to kind of frame a few different arguments or ideas that can be applied to Artbank and propose how we can progress the endeavors and the objectives of the various art banks. And I think this is applicable to Artbank Taiwan in terms of meeting our objectives. So let me just see if I can work that. I can work this. So Artbank Australia was founded in 1980. We're 36 years of age, so we're just finding our feet in terms of becoming an adult. We were formed with 600 works from the National Collection. The National Collection predates the National Gallery of Australia collection, as does Artbank. Those 600 works were drawn from a variety of sources and were gifted to Artbank as its establishing collection. We were originally formed, in my opinion, to provide order to a service that had no order. So Australian art was being hung in offices and embassies around the world with no real structure to manage the collection and the movement of that collection throughout the country and the world. So I think the powers that be in Canberra at the time thought Canada's Artbank provided a very good example on how you could provide order and ensure that the assets that you were playing with were actually protected for the future. The first director of Artbank, Graham Sturgeon, and the then Home Affairs Minister, Graham Ellicott, travelled to Canada to seek advice, and subsequently Artbank Australia was formed. We have grown a lot in those early days. We currently have a collection of nearly 12,000 artworks by 3,000 artists. 20% of our collection is comprised of Australian Aboriginal art, and 80% from other non-Aboriginal sources. Artbank Australia has a remit with two core objectives. Our core objectives are about supporting contemporary Australian artists through the acquisition of their work, so giving financial support to artists in a very direct way by the transactional nature of an acquisition, and to promote the value of Australian contemporary art to the broader community. The leasing program, which a lot of the art banks are defined by and are known for, forms the second part of our objectives, which is about promoting artwork. I'll talk a little bit more about the way the leasing program works to do that. But we went from a very small organization that lent or on a commercial basis artwork to Australian government, initially federal government. As we expanded and acquired more work, we started servicing state and local government and embassies around the world until we had enough work that we expanded into the corporate sector or the private sector. And in recent years, we have been leasing to individuals as well. So in Australia, Artbank, its head office is in Sydney with its main collection store of currently 3,500 works in storage in Sydney, and the remainder of works in storage spread between our Melbourne and Perth offices. So in the same way that Tammy kind of highlighted the tyranny of distance in Canada, Australia deals with a very similar series of issues in that our population is spread on the east and west coast. It does take 6 hours to fly from Sydney to Perth, so it is quite a far way to travel, but we're lucky enough to be able to service both sides of the country. Some of the early decisions that were made in terms of forming Artbank really put us in a good footing, and in the way that Canada's Artbank is formed in the Canada Council and Taiwan's Artbank is formed in the National Museum, Australia's Artbank is totally independent of our Australia Council and our gallery system. You might ask why that has put us in good stead. Well, it really takes away any issues that we have in terms of competing demands. We're collecting for a very specific purpose. We know why we're collecting, and that gives us a lot of latitude. We're not collecting artwork to preserve cultural products for future generations. That is the role of the state and national galleries. We're collecting artwork to provide support to artists. In doing so, we're actually creating a cross-section year in and year out of what is happening in contemporary art in Australia. We only acquire the work of living artists, we only acquire the work of Australian artists, and we are the largest collector of Australian art in the country. That support obviously is significant to artists practicing, but it also provides support to a broader ecosystem. One of the other key decisions that were made was that we're not located in Canberra, which is the capital in Australia. We're located, our head office was located in Sydney, so we automatically had a population mass to drive consumption. Despite all that, Artbank has remained a relatively government-style organisation up until recently. We followed government practices and protocol in terms of how we engage with the broader public. Any ideas of aesthetic that were maybe captured in the artworks wasn't really communicated in our approach of connecting clients with artwork, or more importantly, promoting the value of Australian art. These images are images of our old office that we were in for 31 years in Rosebery, a suburb of Sydney. And in my mind, they're pretty dire kind of images. They do show you the scope of the capacity of our collection store and some early works that formed the collection, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. But there was nothing really there to inspire people. I think Artbank is defined by its aspirational nature. We're not a gallery. We don't have walls to hang our artwork on. We're not an institution that keeps most of our work in storage. We're a dynamic, active collection that is all about engaging with the broader public. Interestingly, this gives you some idea of some of the works in the collection. It also gives you an idea of one of our long-term staff members, Peter Lin, who is a Taiwanese national who works for Artbank. And you'll see him reoccur in some later slides. But this is the old Artbank. For the good, the bad, and the ugly, it is what it is. I started Artbank approximately 3.5 years ago. I've had a mix of experience. I went to university late. I'm formed by different experiences in the world that aren't all about art. I have an upbringing which wasn't really engaged with culture as something of significance in day-to-day life. And I've worked in a range of different industries within the arts, from the not-for-profit, commercial, and now the government sectors. So I bring a very broad approach. Initially, Artbank was defined or conceptualized as a library, a lending library for artwork, much in the way that the lending library for books works, except you pay a fee to loan these artworks. I think that was a very good starting point for Artbank, and I think that as a library, there's a lot of potential for people to find stories and narratives within the artworks in this case. But the job of Artbank isn't just about providing the opportunity for those narratives to be discovered. It's about providing the opportunity to present those narratives to a variety of people that might come from a background similar to you or similar to me. Someone who might be literate in contemporary art or have no idea what contemporary art means, or in reality what relevance it has to people's daily life. I think this was the government's initial intent, and I think it was an early focus that defined a lot of what Artbank did. I think one of the challenges that Artbank Australia face is working within the government context. So Artbank doesn't get any money through a government appropriation. We generate all our own funds through the rental of artwork. In that way, we're kind of unique because we don't rely on government, but at the same time, we're subject to government and the government policies of the day. Luckily, most governments are supportive of Artbank, but not really interested in engaging in a way that is going to cause us difficulties. That can always change. But I think that one of the issues of being in the government context is the tension of success. So Artbank Australia, whilst a program that supports and promotes Australian art, it has a commercial endeavour, a commercial activity to what it does. The success of Artbank is defined by our ability to work within a commercial market and to engage the broader public through a commercial context. Now that isn't always done in a very overly commercial way. We have defined 3 streams that we work through: curatorial, commercial, and outreach. The integration of these 3 streams of operation ensures that we aren't just renting fridges, for instance. We're embedding the value of the collection, the value of the stories within contemporary Australian art, and indeed how that relates to culture more broadly, and we're connecting them to clients, but also to the broader public through a range of outreach initiatives. Artbank, in a similar way to the example that Tammy provided of the invitation, which was about a bank and the connotations that creates around being closed and being something of value, but only to a certain elite, I think that is a question that contemporary art suffers from more broadly. One of the defining factors in the approach that Artbank Australia has is founded on this understanding that contemporary art is potentially not relevant. Now, I say that with disbelief. I believe it has great relevance, but I think that most Australians don't engage with culture on a day-to-day basis. So we can talk to audiences that we already have established, and there are established modes of communication to do that. There's established vernacular and a way of communicating that is accepted, tried and true for communicating with arts audiences. But that isn't really going to get us where we need to go. This perception that contemporary art is accessible, it is for the elite, it is a collectible, not something really that is owned by everyone, has been our first point of call in terms of breaking down that barrier. We've talked a lot about democratizing our collection. Early on, that idea was something of a utopian idea. To democratize our collection, to make art for everyone, sounds like a great prospect. The reality is art isn't for everyone. Not everyone will be able to access art through the Artbank collection. Not everyone will want to, for one reason or the other. Geography plays a big part in Australia. Obviously, the economics of living and a value proposition in terms of the hierarchy of needs. Where does art fall on that scale? It's something that everyone defines individually. I once went to a talk by one of the Sydney Biennale curators, David Elliott, who people might know for good or bad by reputation. And at his talk to a room full of benefactors and philanthropists, he said that art is not for everyone and neither should it be. Because as soon as you make art for everyone, you diminish the capabilities and the capacity of art. You don't have to make art for everyone for it to be something that everyone can engage with. I know that might sound like clutching at straws, but I think it's an interesting distinction to make. So we went about recreating Artbank and thinking about what is a contemporary cultural business. We looked at the cultural businesses around the country. We looked at the art banks around the world. We looked at the successes and the failures of everything, including what we had done. And I must say there were plenty of failures on Artbank Australia's behalf, but nothing that was irreversible and nothing that was without a cause and effect relationship. So branding became something that we discussed and wanted to define our messaging, how we communicated with the broader public. We started stepping outside of those modes of communication that I initially indicated to think about how art can be a little bit fun and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, how we can capture new audiences, audiences which aren't defined by wealth or social standing, but people that are consumers and understand consumerism in a 21st century way. We threw away the marketing handbook and worked from a perspective that marketing is a construct of the 20th century, that people know when they're being marketed to, people understand when you're telling them a story. So we decided to try and tell different stories. Part of our evolution was manifest in a new building, which we opened 18 months ago. Interestingly, when I came here in 2014, we were just at the beginning of this process. Now I come back in 2016 and we're well and truly through it. The new building gave us an opportunity to engage with the broader public in an understanding the public would have of how you engage with space. We opened a series of designed offices and collection store which were fully integrated. All our meetings, our relationship to the collection became very tactile and very direct. But we also provided a template or a series of possibilities on how art can work. See, there's Peter again. He's popped back up in the new collection store. We created space that people wanted to be in. And through this room here, you can see the collection store and the way that the officers engage with the collection and reinforce that for the staff as well as people who come to our offices. The architects who designed this space have gone on to represent Australia at the Venice Architecture Biennale this year. They came into our orbit through the arts, and they fit within our perspective of supporting emerging practice and in this way supporting emerging architectural practice. This is my office, and that is the artwork I have on the wall, so just keeping in line with Tammy's lead. And then we opened a gallery space. So this was the first time in Artbank's history that we had a space that people could access, come off the street. You didn't have to be a client. You didn't have to have $500 in your pocket. You could come, you could engage with the collection, you could understand ideas, and we started to tease out those narratives within the artwork. Each show within this gallery is curated. Each one has a curatorial premise which defines it. This was communicated to our clients, and the standard of our client installs started to increase. Our capacity for our clients to engage, our existing clients to engage in this new approach became evident within the capacity of them to take artworks, but also to think about design within their spaces. You can see some works from the Artbank collection here and here, and this was part of the Sydney Festival, which is showing works from our new media collection. Interestingly, Artbank Australia has one of the largest new media collections of any institution in Australia currently. And again, that comes back to the way we collect. We don't collect once something has become defined by its value. We collect speculatively, and we've started doing this with media art as well. And in a lot of ways, Artbank has more flexibility and is more nimble than most institutions in Australia. I guess what I'm doing through these images and through this kind of background of Artbank is to talk about what is the potential for our next steps. The Artbank image is something that is fluid and ever evolving. We take pride in our branding, we take pride in our communication strategy, but we don't always think about ourselves as being super serious. This campaign was developed with the idea that art happens in unexpected places. And that is something that the Artbank collection really does epitomize. Again, there's Peter on the left, wearing a nice pair of high heels. And we started to look at different ways that we could kind of connect with new audiences that were kind of more open to, not risque, but more progressive ideas. So we started using some popular culture tropes to be able to get penetration into new audiences. The image on the left features a commission on the screen, and everyone within the theatre are artists. And on the right, again, bringing performance art into our communication strategy. This one's a little bit more risky, but you know, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek in that we want to communicate that you don't have to be super serious about everything that you do. This is an artist who is quite well known in Australia, Jasper Knight, and he agreed to come in and pose for this shot. We didn't catch him in the middle of an act. And then we have obviously overlaid this onto our exhibition program. the narratives that we create, and that has been an important part of what we do. This brings me to the next evolution within Artbank, and this is a consideration of where Artbank sits within the broader community that it operates. Now, I'm not talking about its place within the art world. We are an institution in Australia. We are considered as such. We consider ourselves to be a museum without walls. But more importantly, we wanted to think about where we sit within the broader fabric of society. There's it's not so new anymore, but a rising trend of consumption which is defined by its peer-to-peer nature. Has many names: collaborative consumption, peer-to-peer sharing, the sharing economy, and it's often defined by technology, but it is always defined by shared ownership of an object or a service. Smartphones and the invent of technology provided unprecedented access to opportunities for individuals to generate income, but also for consumers to access services that previously were not available. I started thinking about the sharing economy and thought to myself, Artbank is actually an early uptaker of this idea. 36 years ago, I don't think there was anyone would have understood what collaborative consumption actually meant, let alone kind of set up a model that worked within its framework. But I like to think that Artbank was an analog version of collaborative consumption. We didn't have the smartphones and technology to drive engagement, but we did work under this idea that you didn't need to own an artwork to enjoy it and to engage with it, that you could take it home for a year or 10 years and be a part owner. The Artbank collection is owned by the Australian public, so it isn't privately owned. It is part of an Australian public asset, but in a way that you can't engage with arts and culture outside of Artbank. We provide access at very small fees to make it possible for people to engage. Now, the sharing economy is not without its issues. It is defined, or potentially is defined, by a consumer that is oversaturated and over-leveraged, that we are a culture that can no longer afford to buy and to have everything that we want to define ourselves and to define our own personal brand. So we started using shared ownership to reinforce this identity, or this personal identity that we want to put out into the world. Collaborative consumption covers everything from car sharing. Most of you might have heard of Uber, to Airbnb, to in Australia there's driveway sharing, where you can share your driveway if you don't have a car park. Fashion sharing, so you can rent a handbag for the evening. The list goes on. There's endless possibilities within the collaborative consumption space. Not all these things are positive. Not all these changes are positive. Collaborative consumption has a great social benefit in terms of social welfare and spreading the load of supporting and providing supportive service to a broader community base, but generally it's defined by people wanting something that they can't afford. Now, I guess you might wonder why Artbank decided that this was a good space to position ourselves within. There are a couple of reasons, and to be really frank, we didn't have the resources to define our own model. There are similarities within our model that exist within collaborative consumption, but not all things are applicable. There's no way that we'll ever have a smartphone app that will allow you access to your own artwork and it gets delivered on the back of a truck before you know it. There are some limitations within what we do that prohibit that from happening. But there is a narrative that can be extended beyond the commercial context and beyond the fee for service that applies to the way ideas are shared through the Artbank model. By that, I mean every artist that makes an artwork, as you would know, embeds a concept or an idea within that artwork. that is a story that the artwork holds as it leaves the artist's studio. The artwork's life beyond the studio and the way people engage with that is not defined by that initial concept. In fact, it is potentially defined in absence of that initial concept. Traditionally, how have you ever been able to identify an artist's pure intent? There hasn't been the modes of communication, there hasn't been the opportunity for everyone to be so connected that you know what an artist is why an artist is making something. And if you're anything like me, you don't have the visual decoding skills to be able to exactly and precisely every time understand what an artwork means. Sorry, there's some more pictures of me. I'll just pause on this one for a moment. So, as an artwork leaves the studio, and let's say it comes into the Artbank program, it forms a collection of some 10,000 artworks. It is a series of stories, a series of concepts held on racks. What happens to those concepts once they're rented? Well, they go into people's houses, they go into people's offices, they go around the world into one of the 70 countries that Artbank artworks can be found. But they become subject to retelling of stories and re-engagement of what an artwork might be about. So social media has been a big driver of this. You know, people see things. Instagram is a very, as the name suggests, an instant regram or gram of a message, a photo, a moment in time, where people get to hashtag and put a note on what they think something is about. They can also tag people in. This process, this cycle of feedback that becomes an endless loop within an artwork's life, has an unprecedented opportunity to connect those ideas and concepts, or those reforming of ideas and concepts, back to an artist. That could happen through the tagging of an artist with an image, or through a broader understanding of what an artwork story might be about, and how that information gets disseminated into the broader public through social media, and what is essentially a revaluing of public and private space. Collaborative consumption and the Artbank model break down that barrier that things only happen behind closed doors. So whereas you would collect an artwork, or this institution would buy an artwork and would go in the racks or go into a house and it might not be seen for another 20 years, Artbank provides the opportunity for those stories that were previously private to be opened up, largely through social media, but often in an ongoing narrative that is recycled and recreated with every different opportunity that people have to engage. So this isn't just Artbank clients. These are people who come across Artbank artworks in unexpected places. We started coining a term at Artbank called everyday galleries. And this comes from the idea that you can come across an Artbank artwork in a waiting room. You can come across an Artbank artwork where you're waiting for a visa at an embassy in Taiwan or in America or in Samoa. Our artworks are all over the place. And as you're sitting there, as you're disarmed by whatever experience you're about to undertake, whether it's going to the doctor or it's waiting for a friend or whether it's getting your visa, this process of waiting and being disarmed by that process of waiting opens up your conceptual space and the potential for you to engage with the object in front of you without having it defined by a museological experience. What does this have? What does this create, and why is this important? It creates the opportunity for everyone to be their own curator, to decide what this artwork means for you based on your experiences, what you bring, whether it's on the day, the life you've had, the time you're about to have, the things you're about to see, the things that you've done. They're all within you. You are the curator of your understanding. In a museum context, often you are guided through this process, either through exhibition design or didactics or narratives. You're told, in a way, what to think about an artwork without being given the opportunity to think for yourself before you have been, I don't want to say corrupted, but been persuaded by a very skilled curator who has drafted a narrative that you've read on the wall. This is kind of not exactly what Artbank was set up for, but I think this understanding and the potential embedded with this within this idea allows the Artbank model to actually expand and grow way beyond anything that a leasing service can potentially provide. Artbank essentially is about connecting people with ideas. Now this event, this poster that I have here, whilst it might not look like it would be something that Artbank would be involved with, is part of a strategy of connecting people with artists and ideas and things that might be a little bit challenging. This is an event that we've got coming up on the 21st of April, which is based on performance art. Now, Artbank can't collect performance art because it's ephemeral. So how do we engage people within that process? It's by forming constructs that are very familiar. So this is told through a cabaret, burlesque, trivia-style evening that people have paid to come and see. It also forms part of a broader strategy of connecting people through social media and being part of that feedback loop that happens through social media and the way people engage with artwork. This artwork here is a commission that we undertook with some APY Lands artists. Now they're Aboriginal artists in Adelaide in the centre of Australia, and this was undertaken by the Ken Sisters, which are a collective of Aboriginal women that paint together and individually. And this post, this photograph, is our most shared photograph on Facebook ever. Why is that important? Why is it important to see an Aboriginal woman standing in front of her artwork? Why is it important to see an artwork sitting on the ground in the desert rather than hanging on a gallery wall or being handled with gloves? Because this is part of the story of this artwork. This is its genesis story. It doesn't matter whether you can decipher or decode all the semiotics within that image. The genesis of this artwork starts with people, and place forms part of the identity within this group of people. This artwork didn't even get back to Artbank. It was leased out even before it got to our offices, based on people engaging with it in this way. We engage with people in other ways through commissions. And this is an opportunity to both engage with our artist sector, but also to raise the profile of how Artbank works and the potential of Artbank. These are two commissions that we have going on at the moment. They've been disseminated to 20 to 30,000 people. This is an opportunity for an artist to engage with the Melbourne Theatre Company's collection of props, wigs, stages, costumes, which is one of the biggest in Australasia. And the other one is the opportunity to have your artwork displayed in a public space in Queensland for a Queensland artist. These are some more of our social media posts. The one on the top left is part of that collaborative consumption idea that we've been playing around with. So GoGet is a car share service in Sydney and operates more broadly in Australia. And we formed a partnership with them where they provide us a car basically to use, which we then have our artwork technicians use for their installation of artworks. And we engage with their client base based on shared ideas and shared values, which are formed around collaborative consumption. The need not to own the whole of something, but a comfort with engaging with a part of something or an idea that something is of value. These are some more opportunities that we've had to engage people online through commissioning. So rather than going, okay, well, we're going to make some artwork, and of course the obvious place to put that is on a wall, we launched a series of commissions online and disseminated them through social media channels, and reached a whole new audience of people that are very comfortable engaging with their screen, very comfortable engaging with social media as a construct, and subsequently these artworks became part of a redefining of what Artbank is or can be. Another exhibition in our gallery, and that's me talking, and some more exhibitions. The images are more of a background rather than a focus for some of the ideas I want to talk about. I guess, I'm not sure how I'm going for time. Anyway. Going okay? Great. So I guess what I want to talk about is what are the next steps? What is the potential for Artbank? What is the potential for contemporary art in a 21st century idea? We were talking at lunchtime about a few different things which were built around, in my opinion, the start of globalization. I don't think that we really understood when globalization first became a term what the real benefits or the real risks of globalization was going to be. I think that there is a lot of potential that is currently untapped. And as I sit in a room with art banks from around the world and the audience that have come to engage with the ideas of, or the idea of Artbank, I think to myself, what's going to be the case in 100 years? You know, Canada's Artbank has been going 40 odd years, ours 45 odd years, ours has been going 35 odd years. So two of the oldest art banks, what does the next 35, 45 years hold? What is going to be the importance of national collecting organizations like Artbank Australia and Artbank Taiwan and Artbank Canada and the government art programs? Why will we feel the need to reinforce our cultural identity in this way? And why will we be collecting the work of our own national artists? And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure we will be. The last 35 years have been a period where we've gone from an absence of technology to a saturation of technology. And what that technology has done is create an interconnectedness between the world that has never existed before. You know, access to information and access to ideas, access to an untapped potential. You can be sitting in the remotest part of Australia and still access content being developed in real time on the other side of the world. And what does this have an effect? How does this have an effect on our understanding of cultural identity? Our borders are becoming more fluid, and even though we're in a period of redefining our borders and understanding a need to think about sovereignty in new ways, what it actually does for me is raise a question of what will be the purpose of borders in 50 or 100 years? Will there be any purpose of borders? Will, in 50 to 100 years, will there not be an Artbank Australia and Artbank Canada? Will there be just an Artbank where the art banks around the world actually work together with a shared purpose and vision and provide support to artists more broadly and provide an opportunity for broader publics to engage with the inherent ideas and the reflection that artists provide on what is going on in contemporary society? That's probably not a popular view and probably not a view that I think many people will be talking about. But I think that one of the greatest risks for the future of Artbank and an Artbank program is institutionalized thinking. Institutionalized thinking is defined by a reinforced way of thinking that is propagated through set ways of working. You see it in government, you see it in public sector organizations, and you see it in mainly older organizations that haven't really had the opportunity to redefine themselves for a fear of risk. This fear of risk has a potential to limit what art banks can do, but also what the potential of contemporary art is to live in a real way in engaging with the broader publics. I think the future will also, we will be much more tied to the economic realities of the world. My approach from moving Artbank into a purely institutionalized idea into something that is more economically focused and driven is not about just ensuring that Artbank maintains its sustainability and generates its revenue, but it's more about engaging or ensuring that there is relevance of Artbank as we evolve as a society. I think that Artbank Australia hasn't always been relevant, and I think Artbank Australia has a long way to go to really capitalise on its relevance. But I think that there is the potential, and I think this potential is inherent in the structures that exist within the broader community, not just within the arts. I guess I want to finish on one final idea. Recently I was in Jakarta, and I was thinking about the ideas and concepts I wanted to talk to you about today. And I have been a traveler for most of my life. I enjoy travel and I enjoy being out in the world, and I don't always travel to places that are very easy. But what I found as I was navigating Jakarta, which is a city of traffic and pollution and high density living, is that it was collaborative consumption that made it easier for me to get where I wanted to go from point A to point B. I could just drop a pin on my phone and get an Uber to come and pick me up. I didn't have to have language skills. I'd drop a pin on my phone where I wanted to go, and I could get to places that I would never have been able to get to before. This was, for me, a revelation. A person who had engaged with this idea, had got in their car, had come and picked me up, and had broken conversation but engaged in a convivial and in a welcoming way. And at the end of that trip, they'd become part of my journey and I'd become part of theirs. I think this was analogous for the potential of Artbank to actually engage beyond what we think is possible for contemporary art now. I think that's probably it. So thank you for your time, and we'll go from there.
Thank you for your sharing. Okay. 很高兴 thank you, Tony. I think it was a really inspiring lecture because Tony has brought us to a new dimension for Artbank, that what might be possible for our future, what could be the next step for Artbank. However, the situation in Taiwan might be slightly different, because in Taiwan, the Artbank is only 3 years old, but in Australia it's already 35 years, and in Canada is already 45 years. So in a way, we can say that for the past 3 years, the Artbank in Taiwan has established a very good system for public accessibility to art. So when you go to airport or when you go to even the presidential hall, you can see now the artworks are properly displayed. Before it was a chaos. So however, the Artbank in Taiwan has also been suffering from a lot of criticism, because the private sectors, they argue that the Artbank funded by the government is really competing with the private galleries and art dealers. So I have learned that the Artbank in Australia is really self-sufficient. So I'd like to know, maybe Tony can share with us that how you do the funding, or provide us some structure and advice that how the Artbank in Taiwan can move forward financially to be more self-sufficient in a way. And then the other question I like to raise is that this international forum this time we have is about Artbank and also about cultural diplomacy. So I'm also curious to know that what you think that between, for example, Taiwan and Australia, what kind of cultural diplomacy we can reinforce taking Artbank as a platform. So I'd like to raise up 2 questions first before we open up the forum to the public. Okay?
所以我先讲2个问题哈，因为刚刚 Tony 也跟我们分享说，事实上在澳洲他们的艺术银行已经有35年的历史了，所以在这35年的历史里面，他们其实一直努力的在思考说，尤其Tony 接任执行长以后，他一直在思考说，那下一步是怎么样？所以他们也从品牌的行销，然后借由社交媒体， 好这方面来思考，说怎么样让艺术银行能够更亲近大众。但是刚刚Tony 也谈到说，澳洲的艺术银行可以自给自足，所以对于台湾来说，这样子的情况是不大可思议的。因为在台湾，我们知道我们的艺术银行其实是得到政府很多的支持，而且它是有一种政策上的一个目的。就是说，希望能够透过艺术银行，能够扶持台湾的年轻的艺术家。那这里其实也有一个背景，就是我们台湾的艺术家，对我来说，我是在台湾艺术大学教书。那我们当然知道台湾有很多艺术学系，但是如果我们来看一下我们的艺术学系的毕业生，大概只有1%到2%，他可以真正很持续的担任一个单纯的艺术家。那其他的98%、99%的艺术家，他其实毕业就等于失业，而且就开始要面对很竞争的社会的挑战跟生存的压力。所以在台湾来说，其实艺术银行在某一个层面上可以扮演着一个扶持跟鼓励年轻艺术家的一个很好的机制。但是这样子的机制呢，其实也面对外面画廊师部门的一个攻击，就是说，那艺术银行在政府的支持之下，能够很便宜的去把艺术的作品租让给各有不同的公部门跟私部门。那这样子是不是与民争利？是不是把本来画廊可以扮演的角色，就把它变成是艺术银行可以做的？所以这也是我们艺术银行其实在这个推动的过程里面碰到的一个很大的批评。那但是我想艺术银行在台湾可能它扮演的所要发挥的功能，跟或许在其他的国家跟文化脉络里面，它所要面对的挑战是不太一样的。更何况其实有一个数据，大家可能也会觉得很惊讶，就是在整个亚洲艺术的投资里面，有艺术拍卖市场里面有40%的艺术品的交易其实是来自于台湾的自己的收藏家。但是台湾的自己的收藏家，我只能说他都是放眼国际，他真正投资在自己台湾艺术家的作品的收买上，其实那个经费是有限的。所以怎么样在这样子的一个差异之下，政府透过文化的政策的推动，透过艺术银行的这个成立，能够扶持台湾的艺术家自己能够有更长远的路来发展，这我想是一个很重要的政策指标。但是呢，长远的来看说，如果发展到了10年或20年之后，艺术银行如何效法像澳洲一样可以自给自足？那我想我们希望有一个机会让 Tony 来跟我们分享一下他们的财务的结构。
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, Artbank self-funds, so we don't get any money from the federal government, even though we're part of the federal government. So everything that we do is geared towards raising funds to go back into delivering the program. So the better we do financially, the greater commercial outcomes we have, the greater support we can leverage for artists and continue the cycle. The government provides us some support because we are part of government, and they give us some HR and legal and some IT support. But fundamentally, we're responsible for everything that we want to do, from acquiring artwork to paying our staff wages and paying for our office and running expenses. Now that we've been self-funding for 25 years now, and that is actually quite a good place to be in. But the reality is that it probably wasn't the defining endeavor of Artbank. It wasn't something that we were pushed towards. It was something that came from a progressive piece of policy which was defined or designed to create access to contemporary art for the broader public, and policy at a time that people were prepared to engage with. So we were kind of fortunate. Whether that could happen in Australia today, I'm not exactly sure. I think that there's probably less of a potential for Artbank to be successful if we were starting out today in Australia. So I think that there are challenges for new art banks like Artbank Taiwan, even though it seems like this art bank is becoming very successful very quickly. I think that the challenges are really engaging with your broader public to generate income in support of your program objectives. Now, the second question was about cultural diplomacy. We're heavily invested in the Australian government's cultural diplomacy objectives through our relationship with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. We have our artworks in embassies in roughly 70 countries around the world. We provide support for those embassies, not only for the artwork, but for their strategies to engage whatever their objectives are in terms of their public and cultural diplomacy outcomes. Now that sometimes is very passive in terms of forming a backdrop to official talks, to more active engagement on social media, to actually curating exhibitions that travel around the world. One of them has been to Taiwan a few years ago, and it's about a different type of engagement that encourages the rest of the world to see the value of Australian cultural product. Sometimes distance is a bit of a problem for us, and we deal with the complexities of distance both in freighting, but also how our communication strategies internationally, and obviously, we are doing quite well in that. Government, DFAT is our biggest client in total, so the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade is our biggest client. And the Australian government represents roughly 30% of Artbank's business more broadly. As we move forward, Artbank is keen to engage with cultural diplomacy objectives of the individual embassies and DFAT more broadly. And what we've been thinking about is how we can support their understanding of Australian culture in forming a brand Australia, if you like. So having a narrative formed around what artwork says within embassy, what statements they want to make, but also an understanding of, in the same way that Tammy mentioned about corporate clients reinforcing their brand values, how cultural diplomacy can reinforce a view of Australia which isn't just about throwing another prawn on the barbie or white beaches and people in bikinis.
Yes, thank you. 我想透过Tony 刚刚的谈话里面也跟我们分享说，其实透过艺术银行其实让我们在做当代的策展，其实也给我们很多的方便其实我们想想看，透过科技的帮助，我们其实可以在家里24小时随时随地穿着睡衣就可以在家里策展。甚至这个策展也可以很虚拟的，也可以很真实的。所以，透过这样子的一个网络的平台，或者说数位科技的一个帮忙，可以帮助我们事实上有机会能够透过数位的资料库，能够也很容易的去了解到澳洲的当代艺术是什么样子，而且能够帮助我们在要做任何的合作上面是有一个具体的管道的。那这个跟传统的策展也可以做了很多的克服，因为在传统策展上面，我们常常会担心说，是不是收藏家他不愿意把作品借出来，因为他就会考虑到说，这个作品是不是借出去以后，作品会损害。但是如果如果从一个艺术银行的角度，从推广艺术这个角度来说，这样子的一个相互的合作跟策展，我想会帮助我们在文化交流上面有更多的这个可能性。那我们还有一点点时间，是不是现场有任何的提问？
非常感谢您的这个精彩的分享。我呢有一个问题，因为据我自己的一些了解吧，像美国、像英国、法国，也就是像纽约呀、伦敦呀、巴黎呀，这些呢都是全球艺术市场比较发达的地区。那么无论是加拿大也好，还是澳大利亚也好，应该和他们的规模还有一定的差距。那么您所介绍的这个艺术银行的模式呢，在我看来的话，它有对市场很好的培育和引导。那么这个在市场发展的初期，我觉得是很必要的。那么如果市场有了一定的繁荣和发达的程度，那么很多的这种民间团体或者私营公司也能起到一些相类似的作用。那么我就想请问您一个问题，就是如果说这个市场有一定的繁荣度和发展程度，那么您觉得艺术银行的模式，还有没有它存在的可能性？如果存在的话，它有没有一些改变和改善？谢谢。
That's an interesting question. There's a lot of talk in Australia about whether Artbank actually is a big contributor to the market. Now, I said we're the largest, we acquire more Australian artwork than any other institution in Australia, but what is the contribution to the market more broadly? The Australian market is a very closed market, which is very different to markets in Europe and the UK and the US. Australian art is generally only bought by Australian citizens. There are exceptions, there are collections being formed internationally, but primarily they're focused on Aboriginal Australian art. So our market will get to a point where it cannot develop any further. It will hit a critical mass, because it's not just about the potential for that market in terms of the potential sales, it's also about the people that are interested in acquiring artwork. And what we're finding is that art collectors in Australia are often becoming older, and there are fewer younger collectors coming up because there's more of a focus on other things rather than artwork. Markets like in the US and the UK, they're much larger and much more international than Australia, and this means that they have different pressures and different opportunities for the artists that are being presented through them. Hypothetically speaking, if the art market developed to a point that it became so large, I think that it would have no real bearing on whether an art bank should exist or not. The question would be whether there was a need for an art bank as well as a large art market. So if there is a percentage of the population that still want to engage with Artbank and the ideas and the idea of shared ownership, then yes, it should stay. But if that transitions into something else, then everyone becomes a collector, and part of our client base do transition into being collectors. That is one of the side effects of Artbank, and one of the feeding back of Artbank's support into other businesses and other commercial models. But that's quite unlikely that we'll get to a point where we have so many people wanting to collect and not enough people wanting to rent. If we do our job properly, those two things should be symbiotic and be able to exist side by side.
是不是现场是不是还有其他提问？好，那因为我们时间已经到了，所以我们就是让最后一个提问。好，那请。
我想问那个李先生哦，那澳洲的那个艺术银行，它的买卖的规则跟它的有没有牵涉到著作权？然后刚才你有提到那个你们有30个外交的那个平台，假如说类似像台湾的类似录影带的出租这个方法，现在已经变成数位那个行动数位了，那艺术银行是否有可能走这一条路？那这样的话，竞争的话，可能会不会影响世界各国的艺术银行？谢谢。
To answer your first part of your question, we have an accession and de-accession policy which defines the work that we keep in the collection and the work that we move out of the collection. It's a series of criteria that inform the work that we buy, but also when potentially work can be de-accessed. It's about identifying the risks within the collection, but also maintaining the health of the collection. One of the key defining factors, apart from being Australian, for works that are acquired by Artbank is that they have to be able to withstand the rigors of a moving collection like ours. Now, as works age, they become less inclined to changes in temperature, and if their cultural value increases, the risk of those works being damaged becomes too great, and we look at opportunities to ensure that they're protected and preserved for the artist, but also for the Australian public. All the copyright of the works within our collection, when we acquire a work from artists, they assign us a limited license to use the artwork in perpetuity while it remains part of the Artbank collection. And that is reinforced by a general license that the Australian government has over copyright product in Australia. Second part of the question was... Sorry, can you repeat the second part? Video stores and digital technology. I don't think Artbank will ever go fully online. We have a website that has all our artworks online, and you can search it and you can create lists and you can do a range of different things, but you can't rent work on our website. We aren't a video store, and we use online technology to disseminate information and to engage new audiences. But we find that it's important to keep a hand in the process and be able to guide people that may have varying levels of knowledge through the experience of leasing art. But that is also a process which is about educating them on the value of contemporary art, not just as a wall furnishing, but on the value it has in terms of the broader Australian cultural identity and cultural fabric. But also, it is an opportunity for us to be shamefully self-promoting in terms of telling them how good we are as well.
Thank you so much. 那我们时间已经到了哈。那我想我们其实还有很多问题可以讨论的，比如说他刚刚也提到说，像在澳洲他们的艺术银行里面，他们原住民的艺术收藏有高达25%。好，那这也是蛮值得我们深思的一些问题。那我想说，我们还有一点时间，接下来就是在今天跟明天的讨论里面，我们再继续讨论。好，谢谢大家。
那我们再请再次掌声感谢执行长以及赖教授。谢谢。那在我们进行下一场演讲前，有大概20分钟的休息时间。那来宾也可以稍作休息。我们场外有准备一些简单的茶点供各位享用，但请麻烦不要带进我们的演讲厅。那如果有其他问题，也可以向现场工作人员询问。下一场演讲是2点50分开场。那麻烦各位在2点50分前准时到场，感谢，谢谢大家。